my name is Mariam, and I'm the director of Malk Agency. So thank you for joining. As you guys know, today's panel, we're going to be discussing how to build culturally relevant influencer marketing campaigns. And we have some really, really great panelists today. I'm just going to start by just checking, can everyone hear me well and see me? You can use the chat option as well to drop messages or comments or ask any questions that you would like, and we would be able to answer you. And then throughout, when we're done with the panelist talk, we're going to open the floor for some Q&As. So please make sure you stick around to the end so you can ask any questions that you would like the panelists. Thank you. So, hi guys. So my name is Mariam, director of influencer marketing at Malk Agency, and we help brands build culturally relevant campaigns. We've been doing this for a few years and worked with some notable brands, including Daz, Extra, Mugler, Savage Fenty, Selfridges, McDonald's, just to name a few. And today you guys are going to be hearing from some of the best people that I've met in the game in influencer marketing, and people that are really, raising the flag on diversity, inclusion, and so on. So I'm just going to go ahead and just introduce some of the panelists that we have today. First, we have Saheedat Abdul. She is like a go-to for influencer marketing. She's an expert, she's a consultant, and she has worked with some of the biggest brands in the world, including Airbnb, Depop, Google. She's also the founder of Black in Influencer Marketing. So Saheedat, thank you so much for coming. If you'd just like to introduce yourself a little bit more, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Saheedat. Nice to meet you all. So excited to be speaking on this panel with everyone. Thank you, Mariam, for the introduction. And as you've mentioned, I've been able to work with some of the leading tech brands in the capacity as an influencer marketing expert. And my main focus has been leading advocacy programs, meaning finding ways to continuously gift influencers in a way that spurs genuine brand affinity, and then building on top of that with like more of the sponsored campaigns. I've also come from a background of talent management as well. So I had a quick stint there working as the manager for influencers. So I have a pretty full view of the industry and how things go from the brand side all the way down to the influencer side, and then what we eventually see on social, and then some of the back end things that happen from there too. But I'm happy to speak to my knowledge and share my insights on this panel with everyone else, and I hope to get into like a really awesome discussion where you have some great takeaways.
Thank you so much for that. And so lovely to have you here, Saheedat. The next person I'm going to introduce is Prateek Panda. He is a serial entrepreneur, and he has helped startups on their path to growing to generate over $25 million in revenue, which is amazing. He was on the 40 founder and executive by Startup Beat. And he is somebody that is also very active in influencer marketing and speaking on diversity from his point of view. So Prateek, thank you so much for joining, and we would love to hear from you and more about what you do as well.
Thank you so much for having me. So a little bit about myself. I currently head marketing for a company called Philo. We have an influencer marketing platform. We work with hundreds of brands to enable them to run influencer marketing in-house. We also enable a lot of tech agencies as well as other platforms use our APIs to enable better influencer discovery, influencer research, and track your campaigns and so on, right? And over the last couple of years, we've been helping a lot of brands, find the best ways to be successful with influencer marketing. As we all know that influencer marketing is starting to be a channel that is more and more ROI driven now. And that's essentially what Philo is out there to help people do as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Prateek. The next panelist that we've got today is Gregory Curtis, and Greg is a seasoned sales and advertising executive. He's worked in both B2B and B2C marketing. He's also worked in some really huge organizations such as Obama for America, NBC Universal, Uber. And yeah, he's just one of my favorite people on, on the topic and speaking and championing for diversity and inclusion. So thank you so much, Greg, and we would love to hear more about you and what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Greg Curtis. I'm actually based out of Chicago. I like to consider myself corn coastal, so Chicago and New York City. That being said, I have been in marketing now anywhere between 12 to 15 years, depending on who you ask. Currently, I run my own boutique agency called Arecibo, paying homage to a piece of my lineage, which is from Puerto Rico. It's a full-service marketing and communications agency driven by the desire to bring purpose to brands. We take an insight-led approach to tell true and powerful stories that make a difference.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we're actually waiting for one more panelist, Jessica. I believe she's probably having issues joining, but she will be with us shortly. But just to get into it a little bit, we'd love to know a little bit more about panelists. So I'm just gonna go around and ask everybody like a fun fact about themselves. We're gonna start with you, Greg. Tell us a fun fact about Greg.
Perfect. Excellent. So fun fact, the reason why I say depending on who you ask, I was an internet kid before we knew what an internet was. Actually, at one point in my life, I was an entertainment blogger before blogging was a thing. So it's actually how I was able to secure my internship with Atlantic Records through Bad Boy Records. And I helped them with all of their digital marketing placements on blogs. We collaborated with Nicole Bitchy at the time, who was an influencer blogger at her own right. So depending on who you ask, I've been doing this for a very long time, since I was 16, in my house running a Lindsay Lohan fan site, a Little Kim fan site, a Foxy Brown fan site. I had one for Kanye West. I mean, I was just all over the internet, anywhere I could touch music and play with HTML and Adobe Photoshop, I was there. So that is a fun fact around me and my interest in the digital landscape pertaining marketing.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Saheedat, maybe I think we'll just say that next. Do you want to tell us something fun about yourself?
For sure. Hey, everyone. Something fun about me is that I am such a sports person. I love being able to just dive into any sport and have that competitive edge. Over the pandemic, I actually picked up skateboarding while living in Lagos, Nigeria, which is not like the most suitable country for skateboarding. And I just like took to the open road and was riding my skateboard up and down, learning how to ride, and just overall having that passionate curiosity to the sport. So that is a fun fact about me. I learned how to skateboard during the pandemic.
Amazing. That's really interesting. Prateek, what about yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, so interesting fun fact. I've moved a lot of countries. I grew up in India, spent about 3 years in Singapore, moved to the US for 7 years, just recently moved to Canada about 4 months ago. I don't know where life is going to take me next, but I am loving this sort of exploratory phase. Other interesting thing, Saheedat mentioned, during the pandemic, I picked up a skill called sound meditation. So I'm a certified sound meditation instructor. So I use crystal bowls as well as Tibetan bowls to help people meditate. I've been meditating for about 17 years now, and my longest uninterrupted streak was about 530 days, where I didn't miss a single day of meditation. So yeah, hopefully that was fun for people.
That's impressive. That's so
I know,
impressive.
consistency. Love that.
I also during the pandemic went into like yoga teacher training, so I haven't finished the class, but overall it was really nice to just be able to take that time for mindfulness. So I'm impressed that 500 plus days, that's not easy. That's a year and a half.
That's a year and a half, and I'm trying to get back onto that now. By the way, that makes the two of us. I also signed up for a yoga teacher training program, and I still have to finish my assignments. I'm just not able to finish those.
Yeah, I just have to teach a class to finish it up, and but it's just finding the time to create it, and the schedule has been wild, but sweet. Happy we can relate.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for sharing that. So we're just gonna get started then. I think this is the perfect time to start. So my very first question is for all our panelists, can you guys please let us know how and when you started your journey in influencer marketing? And I'll start with Saheedat.
For sure. So I initially got into social media marketing, which had some extension into influencer marketing, with Runway as a coordinator with them. And I started giving out coupons to people and just asked them, like, if I give you this coupon for a dress rental, would you post? And naturally, that's what we see now as influencer marketing, because we're able to take whatever post they made and reuse it on the main page for the company. And then that was our way of filling out the content calendar. So we didn't always have to go out and shoot content on our own and figure out like what we need to put together and like hire a photographer and go shoot. So it was really cost effective and also great at like helping us build relationships. And from there, I then went on to a magazine company called Galore, where it was really Gen Z women driven, and was able to dive head in first into the influencer marketing industry because they had an in-house roster of talent that I could work with when pitching to brands for any branded content on the website, or even an article inclusion when back then when they had the paper copies of the magazine. So my entry into influencer marketing started off with social and then naturally evolved into the influencer world, and been doing this for I think about 7 years now, which has been amazing.
Amazing. And that's really interesting because then it's kind of like you started off in the very early days, so to speak, and you were doing a bit of gifting to influencers and creators, getting content and maybe even making some sales for the people you were, for Rent the Wrong Way, which is really, really good. And, back then that was like not something a lot of people were doing. Now it's common. Obviously, everybody knows what an influencer does right now for the most part, but that's very, very good that you started that early and, went out of your way to do that. So thank you for sharing that. We'll move on to Greg, please.
Hi. So you all actually started with Atlantic Records through Bad Boy, working under Kwasi Asare, his leadership. So how we did it was we gifted quite a few CDs to bloggers, and then we created 2 activations where we knew that they would repurpose and reshare the content onto their platforms. It was really just about taking advantage of their platforms before we had the language for it. It was the Press Play album in 2005, 2007. First week sales generated a little bit over 175,000 copies of pure sales, which made massive impact. We repurposed quite a few of the efforts from bloggers to create reels and like to create more hysteria and hype around the effort. That was like my entry point to it. It was definitely social media marketing with some above the line marketing in regards to like physical activations in New York, LA, and Atlanta, Georgia. With that being said, where I really got to immerse myself further within social media marketing was Obama for America for the first presidential campaign in 2008. There, we did a lot of digital and social grassroots efforts online. We also took advantage of key pillars that we thought have voices online as well to align and associate themselves with Obama, just as a catalyst to lend their support. That was kind of this gray space of like what I would deem like a very early conception of influencer marketing. Currently, the big galore moment on my resume is IRI, where I was the Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships, specifically around multicultural and influencer marketing, telling advertising agency holding companies like Publicis, IPG, Choreograph, OMG, etc., where the market was moving, or where the market is moving, in regards to influencer marketing within those two arenas.
Amazing. That's so interesting, because I didn't think that, politicians would do some sort of influencer marketing, and always, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how that works, and how they work with influencers and, get people to like root for them, etc. So that's really.
I want to apologize because out of a habit, I tend to overtalk. So I mute myself right afterwards because I'll get excited and I'll interrupt someone. So to contain it, I mute myself, but I will not mute myself for the sake of that. I'll practice, good tact. But yeah, no. So in politics, everything is about alignment and having the voice and people lending their social currency and capital and affiliation to a brand that they believe in. So for example, Obama for America is a brand, and it's now going to be a foundation. And while the message was hope and change and progress for the United States from a political lens with this presidential candidate, absolutely, to get the cosign of, a young up and coming alderman who, is taking, headshots with the, at the time, Senator Barack Obama, it has weight, it has significance. It's just a different type of currency. It's not, we're not selling, cell phones and, beauty products. We're selling an idea. We're selling a political movement.
Got you. And that's interesting. That's the power of influencer marketing. It's not, a lot of people think, it's just for fashion or drink, company lifestyle, but it goes, straight into B2B companies, into politics. We all are influencers inside of us. So anyone can influence somebody, but some people are just better at it than others. Thank you so much for joining. So Jess, our final panelist, she's actually in now. So I just wanted to introduce Jessica. So Jess is the founder of an amazing agency based in the UK. I've actually met her before. She's the founder of Season 25. She does amazing work in the influencer marketing space and, works with some of the biggest talents in the country, in the UK. She manages talents with over 15 million people that have over 15 million reach, and has worked with some really great brands, including Nike, Tinder, Netflix. So Jess, if you just want to add a little bit to your introduction and introduce yourself, that would be great, Jessica.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the lovely intro. And I'm sorry that I was a bit late. I was having technical difficulties, couldn't get into the link. But yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me. Give a bit of context around myself. I have been working in the influencer marketing space, talent management space for around 8 years. Very much started working with the first or early adopters of YouTube here in the UK, and manage everything from brand partnerships across podcasting, licensing, publishing. We've just co-produced our first live show with one of our clients. Some of our kind of more recognizable names on the roster that you may have heard of, the Cabs family based in London. They are a young family who have a collective audience of over 10 million. We work with Madam Joyce, who is the host of Cocktails and Takeaways. That was our kind of biggest partnership with Tinder over the past year. Victor Kunda, who is working with anyone from Balenciaga to Coach to Charlotte Tilbury. So a real wide variety of verticals within influencer marketing for our talent, because they're all quite different. So yeah, I've got a lot of experience in execution of partnerships from end to end, both working on talent side and brand side over the kind of past 8 years. So I'm excited to kind of chat with you all and open to any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And just like I asked everyone else, can you please tell us a fun fact about yourself as well?
Good fun fact. What would be my fun fact? I worked at McDonald's for 4 years, flipping burgers. I've also worked at Build-A-Bear factory, stuffing bears. I've had many jobs before this one, but this has been my favorite one.
Amazing. And it's lovely when, you know, people working in an industry that truly makes them happy. Especially it's a lot of work. I don't think people realize how much work it is to work behind the scenes of influencer marketing. It's not all like glitz and glamour. It's a lot of work and a lot of responsibilities, especially if you're on the talent management side as well. So thank you so much for sharing. So we would go back into our questioning mode. So Saheedat, can you please tell us what role do you think diversity and inclusion plays in influencer marketing? Because I know this is something you're very passionate about. You even have your own platform called Black Influencer Marketing. So why do you think, you know, this diversity and inclusion plays such a big part and something we definitely need to pay attention to in the industry?
I will start off by saying that with influencer marketing playing a strategic role in businesses, every company would be remiss if they didn't think about diversity, because they would essentially be leaving money on the table. When it comes to influencer marketing, it is essentially a reflection of the cultures and subcultures that we see and how it permeates through our society on the internet. And then when it comes to even how those cultures interact with brands, being able to speak to nearly everyone in the room is advantageous business wise. We've seen it time and time again with amazing brands like Savage X Fenty, which has been inclusive from not just a size perspective, but a subculture perspective when it comes to different communities. And then even when like Fenty Beauty launched its makeup line, it had a wide range of foundations that we've never seen before, and has been able to be a very profitable business from my eyes looking from the outside in from day one. They were very profitable because they were able to reach all of these different audiences. So diversity is important in influencer marketing, because diversity essentially can lead to like higher profits for a brand. However, when it comes to more of the like sentimental things that come with why we elect these influencers, it's because they could relate to the people that they are essentially speaking to, and then they have the ability to really bring that voice of those people that may have just been like the words through the grapevine, and bring it up to scale so that these larger brands can hear it. So when we're looking to create diverse campaigns, it's not just because, oh, you know, this product can only work with like this set of people. Like, you never really know like how your product is being used by a wide range of people, and how it could be opened up by another audience. So I think we also saw it on social when this one brand, Mael, they had a rosemary oil, which was really marketed towards people with ethnic hair. However, there was a white creator, Alex Earl, who also used it for her hair growth, and it worked wonders. So that was another way that we see diversity really does matter. On the flip side, usually diversity seems a bit one-sided. It's more like marginalized communities, but in that Alex Earl case, it was how like being able to share the different ways that a product resonates with a person can also like work with their audiences too. And we don't live in monolithic societies. We live in very much melting pots in this world, and social has just made the world smaller and smaller, and we're more exposed to so many different cultures that we've never been before, never heard of before, and may not have even experienced just yet, but the internet has made us feel like we've been right there with a certain culture for some time, and you can always have access to that information. So why not have our campaigns reflect that in a tasteful way that is on brand, but also just understanding that like the end consumer can be literally anybody too.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think, you know, that is so important. A lot of people are, you know, perhaps, you know, always wondering, oh, why does diversity matter? This is the reason why it matters. And there's also a lot of creators that need representations, a lot of creators that don't have people like them in the rooms where decisions are being made on who gets the budget. So it's always great to have people in the industry that actually champion in this, like some of the panelists that we have. So thank you for sharing that. The next question would be for Greg, and my question is, how do you define cultural relevance in the context of influencer marketing campaigns, and what are some of the key factors? Like, how do you know that, okay, cool, this campaign, it's relevant, they've done everything that they need to do to be inclusive?
Yeah. So when I think about culture, I think about a collective of assortments, not just one isolated event. I think too often when we think about multicultural marketing, we just hear race. We're not
Right.
taking into consideration race, class, gender, disabled,
Mhm.
etc. Like all of the nuances. And I love what I don't want to misenunciate your name, but Miss
Saheedat.
Abdul. Say it again.
Saheedat.
Saheedat, thank you, Miss Saheedat. Saheedat really ate when Saheedat said that there's a lot of money that's on the table that's being left behind by these corporations. And the reason why I really want to like complement that with some numbers is that, for example, I'm Afro-Latinx, but Afro-Latinx, just buck me in with Latinx real quick. That's $2.5 trillion of buying power right now globally, with almost 1.6 being in the US. In regards to the United States, the LGBTQ spending surpassed over $1.4 trillion in 2021, according to Bloomberg. In regards to the Black dollar in the US in 2021, the consumer report came by McKinsey said that it was almost $300 billion. And then if we talk about the elderly and disabled, in 2022, they said they were at $65.2 billion. So where are the advertising pieces for the disabled folks? Where are the advertising for the elderly that may be Black, brown, or queer, or disabled, or all of these things in one body? So when I think about advertising from a cultural relevance perspective, I ask questions around audience alignment, the trend of awareness of what's happening in the market, the cultural sensitivity, because sometimes they have a bunch of people in a room who have no understanding of the culture they're attempting to target. I'm thinking about the nuance of like localization. So for example, yeah, we're Black in the US or we're Black in New York, but it's not hitting the same way of being Black in London or Black in Jamaica. So where's the nuance in that? And then I think about the authenticity. Like, is it actually upholding its value, its truth, its beliefs? So when I think about like the credibility of a campaign, I'm targeting it from more than one perspective, and I invite anyone and everyone to collaborate with these types of conversations as safe barriers to ensure that you don't go live with a campaign like the one that we just recently had over the past 2 years during the height of the lockdown with COVID-19, where I believe they had Kendall Jenner hand a police officer a Pepsi. Like, girl, who was in that room? Who told you that was okay? So I just think that like these are just things to take into consideration in regards to cultural relevancy, cultural sensitivity, the localization, the authentic, the value, the belief, the audience alignment, etc.
And I just want to hop in really quickly with the story, just on that note, Greg, around like who was in that room. There have been times where I've had to kill campaigns because the cultural relevancy, I knew that if that went live, the brand would have been cooked on social because of it. There was, when I worked at an agency, there was a client that was like a diet planning client where they had an app. They would help people pretty much plan out their diet and what they wanted to do with like their eating habits, etc. And there was a Black History Month campaign where they wanted to create something that I felt like when it got into the marketplace, it wouldn't be received well. And it was around recipes that were centered around slavery and slavery dishes. So they're like, we want to have Black eyed pea recipes. We want watermelon in this. And here's a fried chicken recipe. And I was just like, I don't think this is the way to go. When we limit Black history to this, you have to understand the nuances within the community to understand that these are stereotypical dishes that we have other people like perceiving us to like always eat. We love rice, we love pasta. Our cultures have a variety of rice dishes involved, and it's not just monolithic of like the Black American experience. It could be the Afro-Caribbean experience, it could be the African experience. There was just so much richness to the cultures that when we start to only think about it in that sense, it can be so limiting. And I just felt that the way that they're trying to forcefully tie in Black culture and diet planning together with certain foods that were so stereotypical, I was like, I think you guys need to immediately kill this campaign and go and donate to the NAACP with the money for this. Don't even, let's start from the drawing board again and come back to this conversation once we can actually put some more cultural relevance to it, because it will not fly well on social. If I saw this on social, I would just be so upset that this is how the brand perceived everything. And of course, this was coming from people who were not Black, who created this whole campaign without consulting anyone, created the mood board, had like assets ready to go live, and they couldn't go live, and they wasted time and money on that because from the onset, they didn't have like people in the room that they're specifically looking to target weighing in on how it could potentially be perceived.
Amazing. And I think that's the importance of, people of color like ourselves also being in these rooms. Because sometimes some people are just, I don't know, maybe a bit tone deaf and not really understanding what's going on. And it's important for some of us, to be in these rooms and telling them, this is not good. This is not good enough. You need to do this, this, this. And hopefully we can get to a situation where we don't have to do all the heavy lifting of, teaching them what to do, and people just get it, and we can get to a nice playing field as well. So thank you so much, guys, for sharing that. So next question would be, can you share some examples of influencer marketing campaigns that you think are culturally relevant and executed well? And this question would be for Jessica. So more of like popular or, campaigns that you know about that were done to text and like really, really well.
Yeah, so I think it's difficult to pick. I mean, it's not difficult, it's easy to pick one, it's difficult to pick many. I'm going to pick a more recent example from this year and last year. So obviously through COVID, Notting Hill Carnival had to stop in the UK. For those who don't know what Notting Hill Carnival is, it is a celebration of Caribbean culture that happens in London on bank holiday weekend in August every year. It's grown and grown over the last 20 years in kind of popularity, and it has become more of a celebration of Black culture, but it is inherently a celebration of the Caribbean islands. And obviously through Windrush, when generations before us, our Caribbean grandparents moved across to the UK, this was kind of the one time in the year where everybody came together to really celebrate the culture, the food, the music. So obviously we've got all of our mass floats, everybody is dressed up, and it's a really joyful time that can sometimes be pulled apart by the British media in terms of language used around the festival, the stories that they choose to focus on, be that some form of crime that might have happened, when statistically the crime rates are lower there than any other UK festival or holiday. And the best influencer marketing campaign I've seen pull all of the positives from that experience and festival is the Clark's original campaign. So they obviously they had the deep connection to Jamaica, and they pulled on so many positive stories of not just influencers but musicians and artists and cooks of Caribbean, well, Jamaican heritage specifically, but also some people who live in the Caribbean diaspora. And they basically highlighted their life stories and their family history. And they basically did that through beautifully short content, obviously music that fit that theme. And they made sure that all of the creative was with that artist, that creator, that influencer, and they brought the narrative of their story to life in such an authentic way. They didn't feel like it was advertised content. And obviously they all then wore Clarks during the actual Nottingham Carnival Festival. And I think the brand the brand reputation for UK influencers at that point has only gone from strength to strength. They're a brand that really listen to the people that they work with and they want to collaborate. It's about how they can elevate your story, not how they can come and actually infiltrate your channel with a really strict brief. And that's really like, I think it was very reflective in the content that was created off the back of that. So yeah, the kind of Clarks Notting Hill Carnival collaboration with like numerous talent in 2023.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know for people that didn't grow up in the UK, the Notting Hill Carnival is like a great time in
He's
the
got his flag
summer.
out. He's found his
Yeah,
flag.
especially when I would say, I don't know, I feel most people do it when they're a little younger. When you start touching your 30s and 40s, people still go, but that, the age gap kind of is more for the younger audience. But it's great. I also love, companies like Nike. I think they do great stuff in terms of culture marketing. One of my favorite in the UK is also like Ray and Nephew. And then some people that have just made stupid mistakes in the past. I don't know, like somebody mentioned in the comments, the H&M campaign. That, oh my God. But yeah, let's not even.
Even I think, yeah, that's not. I was about to just snowball off the back of that, but let's stick to the positive examples.
Exactly. So thank you so much.
I wanted to make an offering for that, but also love that you mentioned Carnival because I'm Black American and Boricua, so I got my little Caribbean flag right here the moment you name that. But in the States, one that I think is culturally relevant from an influencer marketing perspective was done by Edelman, which is a independently owned PR agency, and they work very closely with Unilever and that product being Dove. And they aligned themselves around the Crown Act, which was taking place in New York State, but in New York City specifically. And what I love about Unilever is they are listening to their agency. They understand that Black women spend 6 times more on skin and hair products than general market. So they're like, wow, there's a lot of money there that we're not touching. And so what they did was they put their money behind a political bill, and it's called the Crown Act. And they actually did the influencer campaign where they selected Black and brown women, but centering Black women first, with different hair types, different hairstyles, and the way they show up in the world. And really having a very authentic conversation around what that meant to them, to have a brand support them, being able to go into their prospective careers natural, or wearing braids or cornrows, or having a funky doo-wop bang, like whatever it is the girls showed up with, they put to the forefront and they centered Black women. The campaign was stellar, the sales went through the roof, and I think that it made one of the most like culturally sensitive and aware campaigns that I've seen done by a brand in give or take maybe 10 years.
I would like to add there on the Dove part. Greg, beautiful example. And anybody who wants to learn more about how to do diverse campaigns well, Dove is a great example. And it's a product that's available in a lot of different markets, different countries, right? And they take the effort and listen to their agency and have focus group discussions that help them understand the true local stereotypes. And I'll give you an example of what they did in India. In India, there is this practice where there is every newspaper in the country has a matrimony section, and people advertise in the most weirdest ways. In today's date, it sounds ludicrous to post a matrimony ad in that way, and literally every ad would say wanted bride, slim, fair, tall. That's the description in the matrimony ad. And what Dove did is they ran a campaign called Stop the Beauty Test. And they did this campaign and did not hire any celebrities. They took regular people and showed how beauty means different things to different people. And beauty is essentially in the eyes of the beholder, as we say, right? And everybody is beautiful in their own way. And they captured a lot of real estate in every newspaper on the matrimony section, used that hashtag, used new definitions of beauty, and then went ahead and also provided an email ID where if you conform to these new standards for beauty and drop the past old methods, they're going to run matrimony campaigns for you for free, right? And they will help you find your best match, who you truly deserve, right? And I think that's the part, right? Like, one part is brands trying to run this as a campaign, but the other part is, do you truly believe in that mission, right? And take that a step further beyond the campaign. One thing that Dove does really well is they tend to, get people behind signing petitions, taking a movement, take a stance. You create, a spot in history where you try to get people together behind an initiative, and it changes things, going forward. I think that's the important part, right? End of the day, yes, it's going to bring more business, it's going to bring more sales, but can you impact an entire generation to think more positive and move in a better direction? So I think that's what they've done really well.
I agree.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just off the back of that as well, Prateek, can you please tell us what are some of the rewards that a brand can gain from, from being diverse in their campaigns? Because I feel like some brands are still like tone deaf. They still don't, see, I don't even know if they don't see the value, they're not that cultured, not as seasoned. And we still having to tell them how to do these things. But what do you think some of the benefits are?
I think everything's a benefit. You don't lose anything by
Right.
being more culturally, and if you respect your audience well, I don't think you have anything to lose, right? But more importantly, I think Greg mentioned this also, that your sales went up, and even with this Dove campaign that I spoke about in India, more than 10 million people saw that campaign that was measured, right? And then there's newspaper distribution, so many others. So millions of people get to see your brand. But end of the day, what do you get out of it, right? You're essentially building a community that trusts you, believes in you, and is going to back you up, right? As humans, we are suckers for relationships and bonding, and it's not just with people. We look for that element of bonding, and we need something to help us get together and come together as individuals, right? And brands also have the ability to do that if they're genuinely interested. That is what you would get at the end of it. If you are running campaigns that are culturally diverse, and you're listening to the audience well, and you're listening to your buyers well, you would end of the day build that community that trusts you and would vouch for you, and help you grow, right? End of the day.
Yeah, may I actually just may I add some just like a few more things?
Yeah, I was going to ask you to add as well, so no worries.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm so into it. I mean, Prateek really did a wonderful job with that. And I think that, like, obviously when you diversify your reach, you expand your market reach, right? But you actually improve your brand perception. And that's actually super important when we talk about like millennials, but then we talk about Gen Z and Generation Alpha. Your brand perception is going to matter more, especially from a multicultural perspective. Generation Z is the most multiculturally mixed. They're also the most liberated in regards to their queer expression. And so you really want to make sure that you're showing up to the conversation, so that way you can have enhanced brand loyalty. And you also want to make sure that the cultural sensitivity piece is vital, and that we don't have any more Kendall Jenner moments. It gives you a competitive advantage. You'll end up increasing your market share because you'll be able to sell not only in the United States or in India or in South Africa or Nigeria or in Ghana, but now you can sell to the girls in Brazil and Mexico. Shout out to that. And I think by having diversity, out really pushed, you have to have the talent internally. And what we love more than anything is Black and brown people getting jobs. We need opportunities. So if you're really about the diversity that you're trying to get, bring them internally. I want to see more Black people and brown people in diversity, not diversity seats, but in director level roles, in AVP roles, in SVP roles, the C-suite. And by having these tough conversations with your brand in real time, of course, there are going to be some moments where there's missed opportunities, but it's really going to allow for you to better understand your consumer insights. And I'm all about data. When I say this, I've had conversations with, for example, with influential, a very prestigious influencer agency about Abbott Laboratories. With Pedialyte, they had Pedialyte for adults, and they were targeting people who were already brand affiliated and had affinity to actual products already on the market. So they missed a whole demographic. And when we looked at the data, the demographic they were missing were actually Black and brown millennial stay-at-home moms during the pandemic, first-time mothers. So they went live with an influencer campaign highlighting and targeting Black and brown women. So they have Black women, Latino women, just had their babies, putting the cream on their bellies. They're in the gym getting their cute little sweat out. Pediasure out of nowhere saw this huge increase, not only with the children, for the mothers buying the product for the children, but they're buying the Pedialyte for adults, for themselves, for their own fitness journey and fitness goals. I just think that by having a more multicultural lens to the world, you really set yourself up for success, and you set up your brand for longevity. And that's really what we're about, getting the buck, getting as much as we can, but we want to be around for a while as well.
Exactly. And staying ahead of the curve as well. Yeah, so thank you so much. Next question is for Saheedat and Jessica. So I'm very interested in your opinion, yeah. What would you say are the key considerations when you were selecting influencers for campaigns? What do you think? Yeah.
Coming off of just like some of the data points that Greg was hinting at earlier, I always look at the data, because when we are looking to work with these influencers and we're looking to build like ROI, we need to understand like what audiences are we essentially reaching. If this is a underwear brand and we have female influencers that we're working with and 90% of her audience is male, it is not going to be ROI positive, because we're looking for people who are looking to buy that underwear in particular immediately after seeing that influencer wearing it. So looking at data points such as age, location, looking at engagement rates is some of like the primary factors. Then you have the unquantifiable factors such as like relatability, the kind of high quality content that they make, thinking through the full cycle of the campaign. Is this a creator whose content we would potentially want to put paid ads behind, and figure out what would that look like, and is this creator capable of creating something like that? Because there's a difference between an influencer and a content creator. At the end of the day, and understanding which ones we're looking to work with will give us like those optimal results. So sometimes they're content creators who can create content specifically for their own platforms, but there may be influencers that could create content for their platforms, plus their like face, name, and likeness is so recognizable that when you put paid behind that ad, it will always yield like a high ROI. That's how I see it, and I think it's been a really great approach through the years, because campaigns I've worked on have run successfully. However, there are more factors to be considerate about, along with some of the talks that we've had around diversity has been things around intersectionality. So if we're looking at targeting maybe like the AAPI community, and then probably some people who also have disabilities, because disabilities are in a spectrum of things depending on the product and the brand. Finding creators that have that intersectionality can be like an optimal benefit. To Greg's point, when you go back and look at the data, it was these Black and Latinx moms who are actually using the product. So if we could find the sweet middle point in that, at times it's always going to be like super beneficial. So try and find as much data, see what we can find on the back end to match up with that, and then think about the unquantifiable things such as relatability, and go from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Saheedat. What about Jessica as well? What are some of the key considerations when selecting influencers?
I think you actually you hit every single point very, very clearly there. To add a little more, I guess, just from personal experience, there are I guess there's lots to think about now in terms of obviously ROI for brands, but also when selecting talent from our roster and what feels like the right brand partnership, it's always thinking about that kind of authentic fit above anything else. And actually, from a brand perspective, ensuring that although we might tick all the boxes in terms of engagement rate, in terms of audience, in terms of reach, actually we want to also understand that talent that we're working with is really passionate about the brand as well. And for us, it's always about we understand that by trying to always get on a call or having a face-to-face with the brand, with the talent in the room, because the more and more brands are investing into influencer marketing, into talent ambassadorships, into having a face off for that brand, it needs to be less about the revenue for that person and more about that real fit between the two teams. And I think that can be seen through how many partnerships that talent is doing. Every time you go on their page, are they working with a brand partner? Does that then feel like your brand is authentic to them, or actually is there a monetary kind of aspect, and that's maybe why the talent are working on that partnership? And does it feel that you are, culturally aligned in all aspects of talent and brand team? And I think that's really important for us, is that if we are working on long-term partnerships for our talent, or if we're selecting from a brand perspective, that it feels that there are key moments across the time period that we're going to be working with the brand and with the talent that culturally fit and relevantly fit both the talent's plans and what they're already focusing content around, and yeah, making sure that actually it's not just about the tick and the reach. It's actually about, do we have a great fit together as a team, and does the talent actually value and respect us as a brand? Are they already supporting us organically? So yeah, those are the only things I would add, because you did such a great job listing off everything else.
Amazing. And I love that. And also, I think it's also worth pointing out, I think Greg had mentioned it before, when we're talking about diversity, it's not just race, it's also age, it's also sex, gender, it's also it's a bunch of different things as well. It's also, just tapping into different cultures as well. So that's important. And just a quick question for Jess and Saheedat again, because this is off the back of the question we've just asked. What do you think that influencers that have come from diverse backgrounds in whatever aspect, race, sex, whatever it may be, how can they best position themselves for brand partnerships to be seen, to be found, and to be casted in campaigns? Because I'm also a talent manager, and I'm sure I've had this discussion with Jess and Saheedat. It's not always the easiest thing to pitch people from diverse background, or whatever sort of diversity they bring to the table for campaigns. So what do you think talent can do to make sure they're better positioned for opportunities?
I'll dip into this one first, I guess, from a management perspective, because we work with such a wide variety of different creators and talent. So I think it's important to really hone in on some points from Greg and Saheedat in terms of data, because obviously your data is valuable to a brand. They're paying you to reach that specific audience, and I think it's about understanding who your audience are to the nth extent. Really get to know them, be able to answer on behalf of your audience, really know who they are, down to the point of consistently engaging with them. Really be the expert of your own audience. And it might be that you've got a niche audience, and that, okay, great, you've got this 90% female audience of 30 to 50-year-old women, which is a whole other point, is the middle-aged woman who is severely forgotten about by all brands across most parts of the world, with the most with the most disposable income of probably any group of people, yet brands forget about them at a certain point. So it's really about, as a creator or as a manager, being the expert and being able to pitch your audience for all of the benefits that brand can receive from them. So it is about numbers it is about numbers, and it is about data, and it's also about clearly understanding who your audience is and what the benefit to the brand is by working with you. That would be my kind of key bit of advice. Is also from a brand perspective, if I'm receiving something, from a talent, and we're pitching or casting on behalf of a brand and looking for new creators. It's about how that is presented back to us. Go the extra mile. I mean, you can always send a screenshot and you can save it from WhatsApp and not name it. And if you're actually going to be the person to review, reflect, and write up a little bit about who your audience is, why they're important, what you stand for as a person, and put that into a really great looking deck, I'm probably going to pick you over somebody else. It's all about the effort that you're putting in to work with that brand as well. That would be my final point.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Saheedat, do you
I think
think
Jessica,
Mhm.
I think Jess hit on some amazing points there. And as someone who has been able to see like the full cycle of things from the brand side, agency side, and even managing influencers, just that last point that you made around going the extra mile is very key and important in order to help the receiver understand like how is this relevant to them. Everyone lives busy lives. Everyone is doing a million things on their to-do list to like get their job done for the day. And whatever you can do to make it easier for them to say yes is going to be key. But I also want to add in that we live in a really human-based business. We work in a very human-centric industry, and it's going to be all about the relationships that you have in place. And I think that finding that warm introduction and warm connection is always going to be like very beneficial, but that should never stop anyone from going about pitching in the way that Jess described earlier in order to make sure that they're constantly putting themselves out there. But I have found that some of the creators that kind of push through the noise of being on the brand side and that inbox is going to be that warm connection and having that cosign that this is an amazing creator to work with. They have this amazing concept that will fit with the brand. But also being very mindful about the in general, I feel like creators, people in the creator industry are not really considerate about life cycles on things and how long it would take to actually get something pitched and then pitched internally and then actually funded outside of whatever campaign cycle we're on. If this is something that's extra to it, then that goes through a separate review process and round. So being able to balance out like relationships and timing is going to be key in getting that going. And when I was a talent manager, one of the biggest things I used to do was reach out to like 3 people in the organization, starting off with some of like the heavy hitters, the people who are controlling the budgets, thinking about the directors first, and then maybe making my way to the managers, because eventually what usually happens is if it's coming from a director, hey, go and look into this person. I used to be a director, and if I put someone in front of my team, 9 times out of 10 we were going to work with them because I already did the legwork to figure out like if this was something that was worth my time, and now I just want my team to go through the extra vetting process to validate that essentially, and then we would go through that whole process to put budget towards that. So I want to always recommend having more than one contact within a company, because how person A may perceive you is going to be different from how person B perceives you. However, understanding the hierarchy as well is going to be key. So start off with your larger stakeholders like the directors, and then get into the managers. And then sometimes the coordinators do have a say within a company and have the ability to make suggestions as well, and then go from there. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Saheedat. And I think, just to add, I think another group of people that brands are also missing out on is the boomers, the baby boomers. So that will be, I think, most people's parents between the 57 and 75 years old. They're always on Facebook. They're always forwarding things on WhatsApp. And I barely see brands targeting them. And that's such a huge oversight. And they have the money, they spend a lot. So I think, when we're talking about diversity, there's still so much room for a lot of inclusivity and things that we could tap into. So next question would be for Prateek. So how do you think brands can collaborate with influencers to make sure they ensure to make sure that there's inclusivity? Can't speak. How best do you think they can work with brands to ensure this? And this is on all forms. in all aspects of diversity? How best do you think they can work on this? Is it a thing of, or if they want to work with 10 influencers, they have to make sure 3 of them are at least this or that, or what do you think is best?
I don't think that's really the best approach. I mean, yes, you want to build a diverse talent pool to work from, but it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say that it has to be, okay, I'm going to pick 3 people like this and 2 people like that or whatever, right? Like, you want to do a deep search as much as possible, try to find a large group of people that resonate with your audience, right? And one big mistake that brands do, or brand marketers, and I'm a marketer myself, and we are taught in B schools also to define your audience as best as possible, and we try to define them in a nice big scope because we want to show that we have a large audience, right? So as an example, I will tell you that maybe a brand is interested in young men age 20 to 28 or whatever, and the single income earners, then that's where they would stop that definition and show that they have a large market, and now I'm going to go run campaigns for them. But the point here, and the reason we are having this panel discussion also, is that you have to go multiple layers deeper to understand, did they grow up in a Black household, did they grow up in a Hispanic household, their behaviors, their buying behaviors, how they look at money, how they like to spend money on certain things. All of those behaviors change, right? So it always starts with making sure that you have enough of a diverse outreach as well to talk to as many influencers as possible. You don't have to necessarily be motivated that, hey, I'm going to look at 10 influencers and out of which 3 have to be from this background and that. No, like, go in there with the utmost effort that the objective here is to really be able to deliver value for your audience, irrespective of whatever their background is, the influencer's background. And one thing I would suggest is go beyond follower counts and engagement data, right? Like, I am increasingly seeing that small influencers, what we in definition call nano influencers, micro influencers, tend to actually get the message across much better, even though they have smaller audience sizes, right? And the reason for that is, end of the day, it's about trust and authenticity. So the core thing about making sure your campaigns are successful is around trust and authenticity. This entire thing around influencer marketing will fall flat on its face the day we compromise on trust and authenticity, both on the side of brands as well as influencers. So as long as, like, as a brand, make sure you're focused on the trust and authenticity part, rather than trying to collect, like, specifically fill a seat with a certain kind of an individual. Representation is important, but be more deep with your outreach is what I would say.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So we don't take too much time. I think this has been a great panel chat. So if anyone listening, people in the audience, if you have any questions, this is a good time to drop your questions in the chat. Make sure it's just tagged onto everyone so we can see your messages. Or if you've got any comments or anything you would want to ask anyone on the panel, please go ahead and ask now. I think this is, has been a very, very great conversation. It's the first of many that we're going to be doing at the agency. So we're going to be giving more insights into what happens behind the scenes of influencer marketing. And then for some of our panel talks as well, we'll also be, speaking to some influencers as well to get some insights. And if anyone is here from a company or they have a brand and they want to learn more of, and on how influencer marketing can help them, well, you're more than welcome to contact us at info@malkagency.com. We're also on LinkedIn, or you can just send me a message as well. We've got a question. Adefemi is asking if there is a roadmap to becoming an influencer marketing manager, influencer marketer. If anyone wants to answer the question on the panel, please, that would be very nice for someone that wants to get started in influencer marketing.
I would always say getting into internships if you are at the undergraduate level, it's been very key. I think that is how I definitely know that's how I got into my career. I took a bunch of internships just trying to like get into social media marketing, but it's evolved into influencer marketing for me naturally through my career path. The people that I interned with, those are the people who brought me in for different opportunities and ultimately got me my first job in influencer marketing officially. So I always want to emphasize, look at your network, look at opportunities to intern, and when you do intern or wherever you do work, always leave a lasting impression on people where they can then refer you to their network whenever opportunities come about. And the roadmap for this career is really starting off in the intern level, going into coordinator level. Sometimes there's coordinator, senior coordinator, assistant coordinator. It's just kind of wild to me, assistant coordinator. And then going into manager role, and then from manager, senior manager, then director, from director, senior director, et cetera, et cetera. And each step in that like ladder is about you showing more leadership capability, being able to train others, being able to constantly bring in new information that is exciting and new outside of the mundane of like what is assigned in your job. Go and look at what the competitors are doing, create a competitive analysis, bring ideas and insights on how to like up level the influencer marketing skills for the influencer marketing campaigns for the company in like not just the next quarter, but the next year. The people who think like that usually are the ones who tend to get promoted faster within the cycle. And that is just from working internally, but externally, having a strong network of influencers that you can tap into. I have influencers that I can call right now and say like, hey, I have a bag of M&Ms. I need you to post it, and they'll post it for me because our relationships are that strong. So if you can master those two, once you get into the industry, you'll be like on a skyrocket to the top in my eyes. And then also data, some of the other softer skills that require you to be like a good person, ultimately, that people want to continuously work with.
Amazing.
I can add a quick 3-step process to make your application stand out as well, right? You all came to this session. So first, identify a brand or a few brands that you would love to become an influencer marketer for, right? Identify those, see their past campaigns, see if they're doing diverse cultural campaigns or not, right? 2, Greg shared a bunch of data. Saheedat has also mentioned so many things. Reach out to them by telling them what they're missing out on, right? And share those data points. Number 3, suggest some campaign ideas, use references from companies like Dove and others who've been able to come up with good campaign ideas that create long-term impact. Give them a couple of those suggestions. And at the end, if you want, quote a bunch of these people who you've been listening to and say that you've been invested in this, right? And that's why you'd like to do that job. And I'm sure like most people don't even put that much effort to research and come up with suggestions. Your application would definitely stand out.
Sure. Thank you so much for that.
I would just say just another one quick point on that is that sometimes internships that are unpaid and in the city that can be difficult to kind of, I guess, pay for because you're not actually getting a salary, which I understand some people might be in that position. I would say offer for founders and small businesses that you're going to learn a lot from, offer to shadow them. Just say, can I come in for a few weeks and just, shadow you and get an understanding of the business? That could be a first step before even kind of coming towards that internship, is think about what's local to you and how you can benefit from that, where it's, accessible. And obviously internships are a brilliant way to then continue building those relationships. But in like very early stages, even before undergrad, can you shadow small business owners that are doing things that you think are admirable? And when you write in, what is the founder or the manager doing that you really admire? What have you seen them doing on LinkedIn? What projects have they done that you really like inspired by? And make it personal to them.
Take the next question. Just take a few more questions. We are running out of time a bit, but it's been such a good conversation. Somebody asked if what's the question? I believe somebody asked for micro influencers, what's a good number of followers to look at? Oh, Prateek has already responded, and he says the standard definition is about 10 to 50K followers. And if you're, less than 10K, you're a nano influencer. People are, a lot of brands are also looking for micro influencers these days. People with less than 5,000 followers are getting paid for campaigns. You can also look at being a UGC content creator. So with that one, it doesn't actually matter the amount of followers that you have. You literally just be creating content for brands to use on their channels or use to run ads and things like that. So that's another way to look at things. Another question here, someone asked do you think cultural relativity is one of the factors that affected Adidas and the Ye partnership? That's a really good question. Greg, would you like to take that question?
I love the question right after that, but I mean, if you would like to hear my opinion, I can share.
Yes, I would love to hear your opinion very briefly, please. That would be great. I think that's a really
cool. So I think that what affected Adidas and Ye's partnership is unfortunately mental health. I think that I yielded earlier and said that disabilities are something that that we don't spotlight enough in advertising and in marketing comms. And I think that Ye is a Black man and a Black man with fame. And so they've already stated in more than one setting that they have a mental health challenge and issue and disability. And because they are famous, people put the camera in front of them when they are not well. So that is what I believe impacted that campaign. I also think that there may be some strategy there as to why Ye wanted to end that partnership as well. So
okay, that's fair. There's a question here. Do you think brands are doing enough for inclusivity, or do you think it's performative? I know, Greg, you said you wanted to answer that question.
That's what I wanted. Okay, so the answer is yes and no, but it's both at the same time. So for example, in 2020, during the height of Stop Asian Hate, Black Lives Matter, we had Aurora James come out with a 15% pledge, basically calling out saying that, hey, in the population of the United States, Black people represent about 15% of the population. So Black brands should have access to shelves at organizations like Sephora, Ulta, organizations like Target, JCPenney, et cetera, right? And that being said, she was able to successfully do that. That being said, at the time of the data shot done, Black people in executive leadership or just in business, in advertising, communications, and at many of these Fortune 500 consumer product good organizations, I'll call that CPG from here on out, weren't in any capacity leading anything. In fact, 76% of all the leadership was white. They just recently did another snapshot in 2022, and that leadership number went from 76% white to 90% white. So to answer your question, yes, it was performative. And I think that we're going to see an impact in a lot of organizations relying very heavily on consultants and people like Miss Abdul and Prateek and Miriam and myself to come in and clean up a mess, because it will be a mess. 90% of the leadership is white, y'all. Okay, so that being said, there will be a lot of errors made and a lot of mistakes done. So I just wanted to kind of yield with that. I think that it was absolutely performative in some capacities.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think we've covered most of the things we wanted to cover on this one. Please look out for our next episode, which we will be putting the details out soon. Just taking final questions or anything that any of the panelists would love to add at this point before we wrap up.
I will just piggyback on what Greg said around in the future they will be looking to hire consultants. I have seen things become performative because people are ultimately unaware. I did an exercise when I worked in one corporate company where we had to evaluate, like, what did our close friends look like? What was our internal, like, compass around, like, decision making? So once we broke down what that looked like, so essentially what that means is, who are your close friends, and from your close friends, do they look like you?
Right.
Most people would say 90% of their close friends look like them, or 100% of their close friends look like them. So they didn't have that exposure to any other cultures outside of work in order to influence their decisions. And then taking it a step further, when you're in the work environment and you're constantly just trying to get your job done, it doesn't really leave a lot of room for you to, like, learn about new cultures, explore, and then bring in creators that reflect these diverse backgrounds, because kind of living in this bubble. So to Greg's point, if 90% of this leadership is white, and outside of work their close friends are also white, then that doesn't leave room for them to think about, okay, what do Black, brown, and Spanish and Asian people actually think about? What are their go-to creators? Who is the Alex Earl for them? Can we talk about who their Alex Earl is and work with them a bit more and create campaigns that, like, will resonate across the board? That's one. Two, I've also found through the years that a lot of leadership has become very lazy in terms of training their staff to understand what culturally relevant campaigns look like, and not just that, but also what the wider landscape of influencer marketing looks like. So internally, we have, like, infrastructure issues in the industry that need to be addressed outside of what people are doing in their personal lives, but also in terms of how leadership is looking to train the next crop of influencer marketers coming out there. And that's why we see the problems on social around New York Fashion Week looking the way that it does. Where are the experts? Where are the true tastemakers and tastemakers that are really moving the needle? And why are people with just large followings being prioritized for front row seating? It's because people don't have the information and the experience to understand how this has a long-term effect on the industry as a whole. And that comes back up to the leadership that didn't give the proper training or seek their own external influences to enrich their work experience and also the industry as a whole. So it's just a lot of people making bad decisions at the top.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any final notes before we wrap up for today? This has been so insightful. I've learned a lot myself, and I'm feeling very inspired about the future of influencer marketing. Does anybody have anything else they would like to touch on before we round up?
I would like to just simply say thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for extending the opportunity to allow me to be here and to share any food for thought. This has been a great experience for me to be a part of a cohort of such esteemed peers. That being said, I encourage anyone who has an interest in doing work in influencer marketing to have an obsession with social media, obsession with social media marketing. If you're going to do it from a multicultural lens, become curious. Become nosy, ask questions about anyone and everyone, race, class, gender, disabled or not. Just be as inquisitive as possible, because it'll make you sticky and it'll make you dangerous as well, because you'll start to understand why this particular demographic, this is their Beyonce, and while this particular demographic, this is their Jay-Z. And it's important to kind of understand a little bit of everyone's culture so that it makes you better as a marketer. When you're in rooms, you can offer nuance and lens and suggestion.
Yeah, I always have an opinion. So, I think that's valuable. And I think Greg's advice is pretty much spot on, right? And please reach out to people, don't hesitate, and, have an opinion, even if it's a strong one or not. That's what will make your voice heard as well.
Amazing. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Jessica, Saheedat, Prateek, Greg, everybody on the Mark Agency team that, worked behind the scenes to make this happen. This was our first one. And, we're very happy that all of you guys tuned in. Thank you to everybody that attended this today and, asked some questions. So yeah, so please make sure.
Sorry, I think I cut out, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me, and apologies, it cut me off mid-sentence before and kicked me out. My internet's a bit dodgy, so a big thank you for obviously having me, and I've even learned loads from the other panelists, so I hope that everyone who's been involved has got a lot to take away from today's session.
Yes, thank you so much, Jessica. And I've posted the link to the agency's LinkedIn, my personal page as well, on our website, in the meeting chat. If anyone has any questions, they would like to connect, I'm happy to help. And thank you all so much. If you haven't registered to our newsletter, please make sure you do so and follow us on socials so you know when the next one would be. And if you would like to be a speaker or panelist in the next one, please reach out to me. But other than that, thank you all so very much for tuning in today, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Prateek.
Great to meet you all.
Great to meet you too. Bye.